Yes, that I communicate differently. Everyone communicates differently when they are in a different state of mind. When you are slightly inebriated, when you've had a few drinks in you, you're going to communicate slightly differently. You're going to experience the world slightly differently than you would when you're completely sober. When you've run a marathon and you are sweaty and exhausted and your body is at its limit, you are going to communicate differently than you are when you just wake up first thing in the morning after you've had sex with a beautiful woman who absolutely loves you and you have 3 kids with. That ideal waifu situation is just like a fucking pie in the sky fantasy. But that image of like belonging to a family, of starting your own family, more so, that brings with it a certain kind of motivation that just doesn't exist, and that a lot of people don't have any hope for existing in their lives. I didn't want to get into harsh topics by bringing this up, but my whole perspective is I'm trying to communicate my ideas more clearly and articulate things so that I can write it by speaking it, and I have to be aware of my mental state in order to do that well. I end up going into talking about all these other things as well. I think a good way to end this, I think people would be much better off, that society would be much better off if we paid more attention to the mindset that we're in. Not at every given moment, but when you are engaging in important interactions. Like if I'm sitting down and I go, okay, I have this recording session that I'm doing where I need to convey something about this topic that I'm writing about. If this is something that's used with in psychotherapy about and in couples therapy, for example, of anger management or mitigating arguments, before you just react to someone, take a couple minutes to think, to stop and count to 10, to evaluate. But the point isn't to put yourself into timeout. That's how it comes across so many times, is you can punish yourself because you're just a little child and you need to be put in the dunce corner for 10 seconds because you can't control your emotions. When it's conveyed like that, of course no one's going to abide by it. If someone respects you, if they realize this person is working to improve themselves, and they need to have greater self-awareness in order to achieve that improvement, and I am going to support them through that. That is how you effectively create change in that person to allow for greater introspection. Nobody thinks like that today. Nobody considers that kind of putting yourself in the other person's shoes. But that's very important for being able to communicate effectively and meaningfully without turning into emotionally laden mudslinging. And so I just wish people would be more aware of what their state is when they're trying to communicate. And that I wish we were able to have more control over it, to be more civil with one another. But I realize that's something that there's a lot of factors that go into how does one do self-control? How does one exercise self-control? What determines the default state of communication that people have? What determines the presumptions that go into an interaction that allow for it to be civil or that cause it to degenerate into something that is hostile? There's a lot of social factors that go into that. Oh my gosh, there's so many tensions today. I really don't blame people for feeling lots of anxiety, for suffering from sleep deprivation, for having lots of stress in, like, you can go up to anyone and say, yeah, we live in a pretty unhealthy society. It's not great for people's mental health. That's something that's deteriorating pretty much across the board. And people will generally say, yeah. People won't say, oh, you're crazy. Everyone's happy. That's fine. People will, like, especially boomers, will whine about, oh, you have all these nice things. You have all these conveniences around you. But convenience is not happiness. Connection to other people is happiness at the end of the day. And you deteriorate your ability to connect with other people when you're in a mindset that pushes others away. So just an invitation to engage in more insight and to recognize when other people are incapable of mutually exercising that self-restraint and separating from them. It's probably not your place to tell this person to exercise self-control unless you're like a parent to your child. But like a coworker, you're not going to be able to get them to change their behavioral habits of communication. If they're straight up toxic, then you have to disconnect from them. Don't give the time of day to someone that will not respect Reciprocity. That's a key word right there. Reciprocity of introspection to recognize what your state of mind is and how your state of mind affects other people. It's a very, very tall order for some people that are very egocentric in what is an egocentric modern culture. But it's something that we have to be aware of and that we have to collectively work on as a society to improve society. Thank you for listening. I hope that you're able to get something meaningful out of this, and goodbye.